Hello, personal productivity enthusiasts and community. Welcome to Anything But Idle, the Productivity News Podcast. Today's show is brought to you by Co-working Space by Personal Productivity Club. I'm Ray Sidney-Smith.
And I'm Augusto Pinaud.
And we're your hosts for Anything But Idle. Today's episode is number 68, Elon Musk on Starlink at Mobile World Congress, managing your photos, and more productivity and technology news this week. We're recording this on July 5th, 2020. And so those of you who are celebrating Independence Day today or yesterday, happy Independence Day, or 4th of July for those of us who colloquially call it the day on which we celebrate. But yeah, each week we review and discuss the productivity and technology news headlines of the week. And to do that, we usually kick it off with a theme of some kind. And so what I thought we would do this week is talk about managing your photos. And today, I mean, everybody has a pretty decent camera in their pocket. And everybody has a cell phone, and or most people have cell phones today. And that means that we take a voluminous amount of photographs. And like everything in our lives, kind of akin to how GTD talks about consistent management of these areas of our world, right? Consistent capture, consistent clarifying, consistent organizing. We have to sort of think about consistently managing all these different areas of our world. And I think photos is one of them, where these are memories, like precious memories that potentially could be lost or just, mismanaged in ways that allow you not to find it. And I'm really curious about ways in which you think, Augusto, people should think about photo management and managing their photos more effectively, or even just in a productivity sense.
So let's clarify that that's my retirement plan. Sort all the digital photos we have taken in our life. If I one day retire, that's one thing that I may tackle. Our digital photo library, it's in a chaotic stage, to say the best. I'm not a good photographer, even with the technologies of the camera. I mean, I remember many years ago, my wife got a SLR that was semi-automatic, and she was taking all these great pictures, and she said, "Come on, the camera is semi-automatic. You can't mess that up." Well, guess what? I could. That said, we manage on the simple way. That is, we dump them all in Apple Photos and let Apple Photos figure it out what they decide to figure it out. But we have never really got that said. I'm going to say that once in a while, Facebook come with a picture as a reminder and give me the alert of something that make me smile. So it may happen before retirement, but it's something that I have never really spent any serious time into organizing into any useful way. So our cameras, and as I agree, I think the first time I read that was from the work of Andy Iñaco, when he said, the best, and this is a photographer, professional photographer, access with, pretty cool equipment, and he was asked on a show what is the best camera that he would recommend to people. And he said, the one you always have with you, that will be your phone. So for most people, that's the best camera they can get. And it's turning mostly into the best camera people buy. When you look at Samsung upgrades and iPhone upgrades, year after year, they spend a significant amount talking about the improvements of the camera, of the photography in the devices, even before they go into any other feature.
Yeah, and it's funny because I always ignore those. I don't particularly care about the strength of the cameras on the phones that I buy because they're always just good enough for me. As long as they remind me of the event, then I don't particularly care if it's the most pristine photo. I don't need to be able to go in and zoom in to a pimple on my grandmother's face 50 years ago. I don't really care. I want to just be reminded of the memories. And so I would start off with a couple of things. One is, back up your photos. No matter what service you're utilizing, managing your photos starts with a backup. And that means getting photos off of all of the various devices. If you have tablets, you got a couple old cell phones hanging around, you got a couple of smartphones hanging around, those might have old photos on them, and they all need to be pulled off and put into some centralized place. Now, of course, I've chosen Google Photos as my primary place for all of my photos. Some of you might have chosen iPhotos and using the iCloud environment in order to back those up to those. That is not a backup. That is redundancy and centralization in the cloud. So what you need to do is really need to figure out where else do you want to do that. Now, I've chosen to utilize Nextcloud, which is a self-hosted program that allows me to be able to back up my photographs to this environment. Now, it doesn't have any of the fancy features like Google Photos or Facebook or otherwise, where it would use machine learning to identify faces and show you past images and those kinds of things. So just be mindful of that. But I don't need it for that. I need it so that things don't get lost. One other option that a lot of people have and don't realize it is that if you have an Amazon Prime account, then you actually have unlimited storage as a part of your Amazon account. Amazon Prime account. So they give you Amazon Prime photo storage. You can upload lots and lots of photos, I think unlimited, to the system. I could be wrong. They might have changed the program by now, but I have been backing up as a third backup, or I guess as a second backup, all of my photographs to Amazon's cloud photo storage for time immemorial, and that's all just automated. And that gives me the safety of knowing that I have at least these photographs in more than one place, because it's not like you're protecting physical matter. You're protecting, ones and zeros. They're bits and bytes, and there are a lot of them, and they can corrupt over time. So you want to make sure that you have them in different places, and that gives you greater certainty that they will stick around. And so, and I unfortunately was in a circumstance where I lost a lot of childhood photographs, and so I know what it's like to lose those memories. You can't get the negatives back once they're done, when they're burned up and garbage. So just make sure that you are backing those up. Second is thinking through what tools you are actually utilizing for purposes of managing your photos. What do you want to actually do? Like for me, I love the fact that I have Nest Hubs in the house. They act as photo frames as well as assistants from Big G, right? So I'm capable of now utilizing the photographs managed by Google Photos to be able to now have different albums show up throughout my workday on those photo frames. And then if I wanted to, I could get some digital photo frames, put them up on the wall, and have that same synchronization with my Photos account. So thinking about where you want to be able to do those things, plus I can share those photographs with family and friends and all kinds of other things. I use Google Photos also in a lot of work environments where I'm taking pictures of things and sending them to clients, and I want them to be able to think through their marketing plans and marketing strategies. And so I'm sending them these screenshots and other things, and I can now centralize those into an album and then share those photographs individually. So think through what you want your photos to be able to do on a regular basis, and then start thinking about which tools you're going to use in order to make them more effective for you. So those are just my light thoughts about managing photos. Anything else, Augusto, before we hop into the news of the week?
No, I was going to say, like you, I have a backup in a local hard drive that has it's a Western Digital, I think it's called Dual, and it has basically two hard drives. So there's two hard drives. There's one hard drive where I'm backing up, and that is backed up immediately there. And on top of that, they are also all the time backed up in Dropbox. So agreeing 100% with what you said, just sharing a different way to have those backup done.
Absolutely. Great. All right, let's get into the news this week. What's our first headline, Augusto?
So our first headline is Lenovo announced 5 new Android tablets, among them the Yoga 13, Yoga Tab 13, Yoga Tab 11, Yoga Tab P11 Plus, Yoga Tab M7, that is the third generation of that one, and the Yoga Tab M8. And it was really interesting, especially the Yoga Tab 13. It has a stand included that you can hang the tablet. It was a really odd looking tablet in the sense that doesn't look like like a most tablets tend to look. That said, Lenovo has been known for do this with the tablets, especially with the Yoga. That form, it's not new for them. The stand, I think, is new for them. Uh, but hey, it was one of the big announcements of the MMW.
The Mobile World Congress, yep,
Yes.
and yep, and I think this is actually just been I think it was really great on Lenovo's part to announce that many new Android tablets all at once. That's a lot of hardware to be putting out in front of folks. That P11 Plus looks really interesting, not necessarily on the professional level for me, but anyone who needs a pretty strong device and they want a nice Android based tablet, it looks like a great option. And yeah, and if you have kids, those M series look like they are built for kids, and
Mhm.
so that would be pretty interesting to see how they operate. I've bought the Kindle Fire children's edition, kids edition versions because they come with the guarantee, whatever the guarantees they give, you can toss it across the room and Amazon will replace it with the bumper and the screen protector, and it's got the kids edition on by default, which you can turn off, by the way. And so those Fire tablets are nice, but they're not high quality, experiences. Something like the M7 and M8 looks like they are much higher quality specs and would be really interesting for kids who are a little bit older, or looking for a device that's gonna be nice for them to be able to maybe do some schoolwork on, that kind of thing. So very interesting piece there. All right, next up, some news about Mac and Windows.
Yeah, so last week we talked about Windows 11 coming out, and there have been a lot of news about the requirement for this and how many hardware is coming out. And Parallels announced that they will bring Windows 11 to their piece of software. So that means for a lot of Macs right now, as we understand in the article, for every Mac that can install the latest version of Parallels, they will be able to run Windows 11. That I think is a great deal. For reasons of work, I am required to play with those kind of things, and Parallels is always a good ally because then I can test it, I can install, I can even have a one version of 10, one version of 11. I even have a version of 7 for when the client called and said, "Oh, I'm stuck in here. I don't use Windows enough." Sounds good. So I can load that machine and do the upgrades and then solve the problem.
Yeah, no, I think it's great that Parallels is coming, that Windows 11 is coming on to Parallels, and good for them to support. For those of you who are not aware, Wine is also an option. I don't know if they're going to support Windows 11, but I presume they will. But Wine is an emulator as well for Windows software, and I think it's free for the Mac.
It
I think
was
you have to
free.
have.
I never had excellent that with Parallels. My experience was consistent. That with
Mm.
Wine was not. That's the reason I keep paying for their license.
Yeah. I had one particular use of it, like way back in the day, and it worked just fine for what I was trying to do, and I uh went on with my life. But it looks like Wine is currently out in version 6. The latest version came out a couple of weeks ago, and it looks like it is still running, and it supports 32 and 64-bit uh you know um uh system. So it looks like it's doing its job. I can only imagine that it will eventually support Windows 11 at some point. So just know that there are options out there. Parallels supporting Windows 11 is good, though. All right, onward to the next story. What's next?
AT&T joins T-Mobile into switching all Android phones to Google Messages app for RCS. And we talked about this a couple of weeks ago about the RCS when we cover the different apps, and we cover about Google Meet and Google Chat and Google Android Messages. So AT&T now has come to move everything that they have for Android RSS to Android Message app, and now that makes T-Mobile AT&T, and we're still waiting for Verizon, that has been so far the only carrier that has not committed to switching their customers to Android Message by default.
Yeah, this is just great. I mean, of course, it really leaves two major players, right? Verizon needs to get on board, like wake up to the times. And then, of course, Apple doesn't have RCS. They have their own proprietary system. And it's very, I think, unlikely that Apple will want to open this up. But then again, you can now have a FaceTime link in iOS 15 that allows you to FaceTime from any device. So maybe they feel there's a little bit of writing on the wall that maybe we're not aware of in terms of numbers. But the reality is that, that's a chink in the dike that I think is really good for consumers. And I think that if Verizon and Apple can get on board, then we now have the capability of actually having communications platform on our phones that are safe and secure for us to be able to actually communicate with each other. And that's just a remarkable movement for really all of mankind. I mean, I don't want to kind of minimize the idea here, and I certainly don't want to make this sound like hyperbole, but this is actually really, really important. That I can securely message with you wherever I am in the world is really important. SMS is not secure, although what Google is doing here is actually porting Android messages for both RCS and SMS, which would include MMS as well. But RCS would be then a secure method for being able to transit messages, which is like, think about the authoritarian regimes around the world, and those kinds of things. Those citizens who are utilizing Android messages would then have a secure way to be able to communicate with each other, which is just remarkable, and that's built into their phone, not having to install some, third-party application that could not be the application, right? You can go into the Android store, the Google Play Store, you can go into all the other places, and you could accidentally install the wrong application. It looks like WhatsApp, but it's really not. It's some, authoritarian government's takeover of the App Store inside of their borders. There's all kinds of tricky things that people do. And this is a really good move. So crossing my fingers that both Verizon and Apple get on board and do this for humanity and not just for their own interests. So, all right, onward.
Well, our last news is Galaxy also announced they have a virtual event. That virtual event was interesting. It was short, it was 30 minutes, but it's showing more and more how Samsung has decided to follow Apple idea of have a consistent ecosystem regardless of who are the players. Hey, buy Samsung products and they will talk to each other in a similar way or in a Samsung way how a Mac product will talk their iPads with their phones, with their computers, and so far. Same with the watches. And that is really exciting for me to see, because I have said for many years now that is one of the secrets of the productivity. I can grab any device here in my office and looks, feels, and drive exactly as the other one. And that allows me to be really productive. That allows me to have multiple devices around me that I can do the same thing regardless which device I am. Samsung trying to replicate this and making partnership with with Google, making partnership with Microsoft to really get this consistent. I think it's for the PC world a game changer, and I hope not only they succeed, but that they really can push this as an example for the other producers of Microsoft products, and same with Google.
Yeah, so we kind of touched on this earlier, which is that Lenovo announced these 5 new tablets, Android tablets, at Mobile World Congress, which happened this past week in Barcelona for the first time since the pandemic. They had canceled last year's, so 2020 didn't happen. They normally have 100,000 people who come to this event. It's a huge opportunity and trade show space for the telecommunications space, for the mobile space. And this year they had a bunch of safety precautions and whatnot, and really only had 30,000, less than a third of what they would normally have there. And so to have Samsung really put forward a strong, event right in the middle of MWC 2021 is really phenomenal. They focused on 3 different things in the show that I really kind of latched onto. They focused on what they called the open Galaxy system. It's just kind of an oxymoron. But the idea here is, as you noted, they've made these specific and strategic partnerships with Microsoft to be able to integrate with Windows and with Google in order to integrate with Watch with their watches with Wear, formerly Wear OS, and then they focused on on the wearables and how One UI was being brought to the Galaxy line of watches. I'm really looking forward to seeing the first watch they do put out, the first smartwatch they do put out with this new partnership with Google. I think it will probably be my next watch. I'm really a big fan of the Galaxy. I think it's the 3 that they most recently put out. It's a nice watch. It looks good, and it's something that I probably would wear. And but I'm ready. I'm like so ready for an upgrade for a new watch, but I'm just waiting now because I want to see what this looks like, and I think this will be the right choice for me. It comes with LTE, or whichever watch I want it to come with LTE so I can take phone calls, still do mapping, go for a run, not lose connectivity, that kind of thing. Maybe I'll actually be able to run without my phone for once, because I still wear an armband and run with my phone because I need it tethered to my watch in order to do its work, and that's a bit of a pain. And it'll be a cold day in what before I buy an Apple Watch. No offense. It's not going to work very well with my Android system. It's just no way. And I don't like the square. I don't want square things on me. So I'm just not a square person. But I'm really looking forward to it. And then they close this out, kind of going toward a little bit toward the enterprise space where they really focus on security and the ability for Samsung to really be this highly private and secure space. And it goes back to your point that these are really the things that Apple has tried to do to make themselves look bespoke to their audience, to their luxury audience. And it seems like a playbook that works. And so Samsung's playing their hand at it. And TM Rowe and his team at Samsung, I give them great credit because they're doing a really great job. And so TM Rowe is the CEO of Samsung. And so I give Rowe and his team a really great nod to the work that they're doing, and especially here at Mobile World Congress and doing this throughout the pandemic. They've been doing a really strong job of making all those things kind of come together and making it work for people. I think that's the biggest part, is like really helping people connect in this time when it's really difficult. And so with that, we've reached our halfway point, and so we will turn it over to our sponsor this week, Co-working Space by Personal Productivity Club. When we get back, we will continue the news of the week.
While working in person may be normal for you, it's unlikely your coworkers are as interested in being productive as you are. Or working remotely or from home can be isolating. And there's something powerful about being with productive people, even virtually, that helps you be more engaged. If a flavor of these sounds familiar, Co-working Space by Personal Productivity Club is for you. Co-working Space is a virtual work community designed to help members be more effective and efficient in their work and personal lives. At its core, we provide goal tracking and host focused action sessions throughout the week for accountability and camaraderie. Visit anythingbutidle.com/coworking to learn more. Co-working Space lives inside Personal Productivity Club, a digital community for personal productivity enthusiasts, so you can find people who use methods and tools you do too. Again, head over to anythingbutidle.com/coworking to see how Co-working Space can help you be more productive. And now, back to our show.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to Anything But Idle. I'm Ray Sidney-Smith, joined here, of course, always by the inimitable Augusto Pinaud. We are going to continue on with our productivity articles this week. And so we've done the headlines. We've got some articles to run through. We will do our tools of the week, the new tools of the week, and then we will close out with our featured story. So let's get into our productivity articles this week. What did we find this week, Augusto?
So the first article we're going to talk is Wall Street Journal. Remote work is the new signing bonus. And it was a really interesting article. We have talked about the signing bonus. Okay, you come here and I give you this amount of money for you to come. And it is interesting how people don't want to, not everybody wants to come back to the office, and how the people, and we discussed this at the beginning of the pandemic, and we were saying there is the people who has always wanted to be remote, that for whatever reason they couldn't because the corporations say, no, we cannot do it, work cannot be done, whatever was the reason, that now have proof that can be done. There is the group of people who don't care one way or the other, and there is a group of people who cannot see still the moment. Those are not the ones who need designer buttons. Okay, they're ready to go to the office, and they're waiting for them to give them the green light so they can run back. But there is a significant amount of people who have now come to the conclusion that they don't want to come back. They don't want to do those commutes. They don't want to deal with all that and the expenses and the health implications of all this, because going to the office every day means you eat more outside. That is more expensive. There is a lot of things. So it is interesting how corporations are starting to look into talent, into especially on those corporations that are starting to talk, well, you need to come back, you need to come back, you need to come back. And versus those corporations who said, that's fine, you can be anywhere as far as you do your job. And now let me offer you that as a signing bonus to poach talent. So it's really, really interesting, the dynamics that are happening with all this. We don't want to come back. We want more remote work or a better hybrid position.
Yeah, the thing that comes to mind when I see articles like this is, of course, companies are going to do what they need to do to find talent and to entice them to come to their companies. I think it's laudable for any HR director to make sure that they are, or hiring managers to go out there and make sure that they are putting out the right things to get the right talent. The thing that kind of shocks me is that there isn't actually a dialogue in this article about something I think that's really important, which is that when I'm working at home, you need to be able to either provide a stipend for the physical space in which I'm working. You need to be able to provide infrastructure. Are you going to be providing me with a desk, equipment? Are you paying for internet access for me to work from home? Like, all of those things are things that the company, if it doesn't have an office anymore, and it's just basically getting rid of it and going to a distributed model, that's one thing. And that, I think, requires you to then start paying your employees for them to be working in a distributed model, because they are now bearing the cost of your real estate, of your infrastructure to do your work. They're not a 1099 where they are supposed to be paying for their own things. But at the same time, if you're saying you can work remotely as an enticement, as like this, your flexible schedule is a benefit, it's part of your benefits package, it kind of conflates the notion to me that somehow you should be paying for you should be, basically, reimbursing me for the costs of taking up my physical space for your work. And so there's a little bit of, I don't know how that's going to really work out. Like, is this going to become an NLRB, lawsuit at some point? Like this, there's a disconnect there that I'm not sure about. But I think, it's one that has to be worked out. Obviously, if I were in and looking for a job and a company told me that it was remote optional, or, like I had flexibility to work remotely and go into the office, that would be something that would be enticing to me. So it's not like it wouldn't be enticing, but I am concerned about what that means in terms of a true benefits package. And I'm not a benefits expert, so I can't really tell. But that definitely came up to me because I was like, wait a second, like if my employees are working in a distributed model, I pay for those cell phones. I pay for because that's on my dime. You know what I mean? Like, that's my company, property, so it's like all of those things that come into mind. And so I think about that when I think about this. So we'll see what happens as we go through, but we're going to continue to see more and more remote work coming up. And I think we need to be mindful that as we are making these choices, it seems like the pandemic is coming to a close in the United States, but it is not ending anytime soon. And we have some time to go through this. And so I'm hoping that we don't have a terrible resurgence in the fall. I hope that we don't go through more lockdowns, at least here in the States. But, around the world, it is a very different circumstance. Look at Australia right now. They're having, lockdowns in parts of the country. And we're having resurgences of the Delta the second Delta variant or whatever you want to call it, Delta variant 2, it's proliferating. It's going to become the dominant strain here in the States. It's supposedly more virulent but less deadly. I guess a good thing. I don't know. It's kind of a crazy thought experiment. But the idea here is that we're in this for a while, and so companies do need to grapple with what's going to be most safe for their employees while still retaining and attracting those employees. And by retaining, I don't mean not putting them in danger to die, but literally just keeping them working for them because they have other choices. So, all right, on to our next story.
Our next article comes from Better Humans, and it's an article Michelle talks about how I conquer my snooze button and change my life. I wasn't expecting much about this article, and maybe because I don't struggle with that as much. But there was something in the article that I really, really enjoy. And so 3 years ago, I realized that the choice of wake up, hit a snooze, or turn off my alarm was the first choice I made on my day. And that choice was setting me up for either success or failure. And I really like that couple of lines on the article, because as much as later she go into things that I agree, and I have on my do not do list, I do not negotiate with me in the morning. I set my wake up time in the night, not in the morning. And at some point, much early in my life, I struggle with this putting the alarm and don't wake up or hit the snooze so many times. I never thought about it as this is the first choice I'm making on the day, and I can make a better choice. So that way my day start with a success and celebrate it as a success. I did not hit the snooze today, and I got up to bed at the first thing. So that was really, really interesting. I have not thought about that. She talks then about setting alarm for bedtime. That's something that I do. I have an alarm. I wake up every day at the same time, Saturday or Sundays, doesn't matter. And I have an alarm to go to bed every day at the same time, even if I don't. The watch will tell me, it's bedtime, and if I decide not to go, I'm making the choice again of whatever is going to be the time for the alarm. Also talk about find your perfect type, make it hard to reach. Mine is close to the bed, that's not a problem. But I have I always said that the watch was one of the best things, the Apple Watch, for that alarm thing, because I like the fact that it makes the noise and vibrate here. And I don't need to, I just need to open my eyes and hit it.
Yeah, I think that she makes some really great points. I kind of come at it from a different perspective, which is that I've set up my waking routine to remove choices. I'm trying to fight decision fatigue throughout the day. And so, being the owner of a business, I have to make hundreds of decisions every day for the company. And that requires me to try as best as possible to remove any other decisions in my world that are extraneous. And waking up is just not one of the decisions I need to make, because I've made it once. I've decided to get up at a particular time every day. And when the alarm goes off, I wake up and I'm off to the races, so I kind of think of it from that other side, which is like, make a decision once, right? Like, you place your recognition of what needs to get done into position, and then just go do it, right? And so I totally get where she's coming from. I get the perspective, but I've just kind of, I've in my own head, I see it as, no, I've decided that whenever the alarm goes off, then I get up, and that is the rule, and it's just kind of sacred. It's just what it is, right? Like, there's no decision that needs to be made there, because it's always been made, right? And I may be exhausted. I may decide to do other things differently once I do get up, but the getting up part is just not a question, right? I just do it. And so, yeah, I think she gives really great advice, though, for any people who are struggling. I think that, the going to bed part, like her discussion about getting to bed on time, is way more important than the getting up part, because most of the time you're not getting up because you're exhausted. And this is a sleep epidemic, really, in a global epidemic. We have these little tiny computers in our pockets. They're sitting on our side tables in our bedrooms, and they are causing us to stay up later, be more distracted or distractible, and it keeps us, like the bright boxes in our face, and so we have to do what we can do to be able to sleep better. And I think one of the best things we can do is actually getting to sleep, so that we have enough sleep to get up in time. So I thought it was a good article, good to think about. And the thing that stuck out most for me was that I actually didn't know this, and I try to stay up on these things, but there is a .pub, the domain .pub, for a publication, and Better Humans is using the .pub. And so I was like, what? How did I not know that there was a I don't know whether it's for publicity or publication, but .pub is a really good GTLD, generic top-level domain. So I'm like, what domain should I register for .pub? Because all right.
I can give you a couple of ideas. Happy to share with you.
I know. I don't need any more domains. Hoy. All right. On to Leo Babauta wrote an article.
Wrote an article that talks about the practice of truly enjoying time off, and Leo is talking how he took the month of June off and what are some of those strategies. I know most people can't do what Leo does, that he took December off and took June off.
Yeah.
Or they don't want to. Okay, so I was reading the article. There was a couple of really things on that article, but I am not yet where I want to have that month off. Okay, I like what I do, but
but I don't think he's saying. I don't think he's saying that he doesn't like what he does.
No. He never said that on the article. He never said that on the article. Okay, but I like other things that he said. Okay, what I've been learning is to set the boundaries, and that's something that I learned years ago, and I'm decent at. Choose what you are doing. Slow down, be in the moment, practice full appreciation. Let out of the energy, the stress, the frustration, and allow yourself to play. And that's something that I do not terribly into injecting those things into my day. My day is mostly split into really early and really late, and that middle part has a lot of those components most of the time. So I may need to take a month of vacation where I don't take meetings 12 to 4. That would be a good idea.
Well, I have considered this. I mean, that you and I have had this conversation about my desire to kind of, as Europeans do. Most Europeans take off about 2 months of the year, and it's culturally just a part of being European. And here in the States, we have a work ethic that for some reason doesn't have that, and I think it's bad for our economy. I think it's bad for most Americans to be overworking. You lose creativity, you lose innovation, and you don't get as much productivity out of people when they are actually working. And so it's kind of like with the pandemic. Remote work and flexible work schedules, a distributed work model, actually increases productivity, and so. I think that the reality factor is that once we get that into the culture, I think it will be more useful to us all when we see it on the other side. Like, for example, if I didn't have hobbies, if I didn't have rejuvenative activities, I would not have the ideas during those times of working in multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary activities that then spark ideas that then I bring back to my real work. And I say, you know what? Why can't we do this thing over here? Like, let's make this happen in that space. And so I really believe in the concept. Of course, what I've had to do is, I try to take off blocks of time, usually 2 weeks at a time, and then extending weekends during the summer months. I haven't done that in the past 2 years, and I really want to do that going forward. But in essence, you can fully take off 2 months of every year just by, say, during the summer months, I'm going to do a four-day weekend, or 3-day weekends for the summer months. And then maybe in the spring and in the fall or winter, then I'm going to take off 2 weeks at a time in one of those 2 or 3 categories. And then you build up to basically, in essence, what ends up being 2 months of time. But it's not as harsh of an impact on your being away from the office. And that's kind of what I want to figure out how to do better.
Yeah, and that's I prefer that. And I was reading an article recently talks about that after 8 days, your vacation start going down. That I don't know, for me it's 4. Okay, I can take 4 at the third day. I'm done. I'm ready to go back to my messy life. So, um, and that is the reason I don't expect to do a month or two, but I do a lot of those 3 to 4 days weekends where I may go and drive. I like driving; it's distressing for me, so I can drive for a day or two, stay 2 3 days on one place, and drive back. Now, that give me that longer. That's probably the longest I will go because I will get bored. So, it's it's not necessarily that great for me.
Yeah, and I need like 5 days to decompress, and then I feel like I'm on vacation.
Right.
So I think it's everybody's different, and you need to figure that out. And I think that's a really good note to for everybody to take hold to, which is like algorithmically, how much time do you need to kind of disconnect from work before you start to actually refresh, right, recharge, and then give yourself enough time to do that, and then ramp yourself back up into a work mode. And what I'd like to do is I like to actually be back before anybody knows I'm back, so that I'm able to have a few days where I adjust back to my normal schedule and catch up on things behind the scenes before then I'm back to seeing clients and doing all those things. So people might know I'm back, but I'm not taking appointments. I'm not doing those things until I'm fully ready to take people back into the world and get into all of the, normal scheduling and normal work of my world. So, all right, onward to our next article.
So our next article is an article that talks about past, present, and future. Use better time perspective to live better. And they talk about the 1-9-90%, 1% past focus, 9% future focus, and 90% present focus. Uh, it was an interesting article. I don't know how easy it is to apply that. I agree. The 1% back for journaling, I'm completely in. The future, I need that. And I don't know, it was a good article. I don't know. What is your take on the article?
Yeah, I'm probably in the 5%, maybe a little bit more than that in terms of reflection. I spend, I think, a little bit more time in that space. I feel like I look at, going back to the photos component, like I actually like looking at photos of family events and of things of that nature. So I do actually spend quite a bit of time in that space. I also, I don't know if that's necessarily past, present, or future, but I see I have family and I have young nieces and nephews, and so looking at photos of them, I'm looking at those photos of them after the fact. I mean, I don't know if that's really reflection or present, since I wasn't there. I'm looking at photographs of them. But that ends up me looking at other photographs of other things going on in my world. So I'm always just looking at photographs. I don't feel that takes or detracts from my ability to get things done, so it's not particularly an issue for me. In terms of my future planning, I definitely spend a good 10 to 20% of my time planning. And that's because that's my natural mode. Like if you just let me be, I would plan all the time. It would become 100% of my time. I love that state. So I know that I have to curtail that. And so I plan more than most people, but I also, corresponding with that, I make sure that I am more productive in the 80 to 75% space of present focused work, because I know that I like to plan more than others, right? So I'm going to hopefully make better right first steps than others because I like that planning piece of it. Not always the case, maybe 10% of that planning is superfluous, but it actually reduces my anxiety and allows me to be able to focus on the things that are important to me. So I spend more time in that space. So again, this goes back to the notion, know thyself. And if you are capable of determining how much time that is, okay, if you're going to choose 1% of your week, well, what's 1% of 168 hours? That's how much time you're going to spend each week in that past space. If you're going to spend 5% of your time planning, then how much of that time are you doing? And then if you're going to spend the next whatever, I don't know what that number is now. So 96, 95, 94%, in 94%, then that's time that you then have to break apart into sleep, eat, other kinds of necessities. And then the balance then becomes really focus work and action work, right? Like, what are you doing to be able to get that work done? So
Yeah, I like you. I spend a lot more on the past focus, and because I like that planning time. I like that thinking time. I like that strategy time. So I tend to do a lot of great, what all this means and how will this need to be applied now, and that time past future jump, it takes a chunk on my time. I don't know if I will pass all the time planning like you, but I for sure spend a significant amount of time doing that.
all right, last article before we go into new tools.
Our last article on the ladders is the genius of subtracting habits to make your life better. And this was I'm now confused.
Yeah, so the author of the article was talking about the idea of sometimes it's not about adding new habits, but taking habits away that are not serving their purposes. I guess I agree with the article in a lot of ways. I think that what we have to remember is that whenever we are, quote unquote, taking away a habit, what we're really doing is replacing it with something. And so I never really talk about the addition or subtraction of doing things. For example, you've advocated the idea of the not to do list, which I think is a really good thing to pay attention to. Like, when you're doing this thing, you should like look at the list and say, I'm not going to do that thing, right? That's a good mechanism, but that's not for necessarily habits in the sense of like, okay, if I'm a smoker and I'm trying not to smoke, you need to replace the habit of smoking with something else that is going to calm your nerves, because you're basically trying to satisfy a craving or some other thing that's going on, whether it's mood related or otherwise. It's likely mood related. You're trying to maybe calm anxiety, so you smoke, or you're trying to get a little buzz or whatever it is. You're doing something, so now you have to replace it with something healthy and positive to replace that other thing that you were doing. So that's the only real piece that I would add here, is that this is all about adding something positive to your world, kind of to the point of, you had Jeff Siegel for that event, what can I gain? And having that question that asks, what are you getting out of the circumstances? As opposed to what are you losing or what are you deleting from your world? It's like, what are you actually adding to your world? How can you put a positive spin on this so that it becomes something that's motivating and progressive, as opposed to deleting and diminutizing? So I just really feel like we should always keep to the positive in these cases, because it really does and is more motivating in that sense. All right, so that takes us along to our brings us to the end of our stories this week, and that brings us on to our new tools this week. And so, of course, each week Augusto and I just scour the interwebs for all of the various stories, both the news articles, but also the productivity articles that we cover each week. And so in new tools of the week, Augusto and I pick 2 tools. They may be tools that we just have known and loved and used for some time, or they may be new tools to us as well. And we want to share those with you in the show. And so first up is my new tool, which is a tool called Reflect. And Reflect is really interesting. What it is it's kind of like a spaced repetition based tool, but it connects to your Evernote account. So Reflect allows you to connect your Evernote, or in China, which is the Yingjiang tool, the Yingjiang Bingji. So if you're using Evernote in China, you would use that application, but everywhere else, it's Evernote. And so Evernote, you can connect your Evernote notes, and it goes ahead and captures all of those pieces, and it kind of turns it into these flashcards that can show you these pieces, and uses spaced repetition in order to do that. So you can clip parts of your notes from books. You can capture notes from lectures. You can capture just ideas that you're having, and it will then show it back to you in a time sequence so that you can recall it better. And so, yeah, I just really like it. It's a great tool, and it connects to Evernote, which is my extended mind. So everything's already in Evernote. So it's just a natural extension to be able to say, oh, you know what? I want to remember these quotations from this book. So display them to me on a regular basis so that I can remember them. And as they keep displaying them to me, they then help me remember. So that's my tool of the week, reflectapp.io. How about you, Augusto?
So I pick one that comes through the topic of the week of the camera, and it's called Filmbox. Filmbox will allows you to get an all negative, okay, of the camera. Yes, for those for us who remember going to the store and wait 2 weeks to see the pictures, and your dad's shouting at you for stop. I can only take one picture. Okay, need to be a good one. Okay, I get my kids will never get that experience. Okay, we can throw out 1,000 of them and then delete them or not. But that was my childhood home. It's full of those film things, from the different trips and all that. So it allows you to take the picture directly into the film and extract a digital version of it. So it is a great way to extract those pictures, turn them into a digital version of it directly on your phone or your iPad. So I just wanted to share that application in case you have or your parents have some of those pictures.
Yeah, and actually, to your point, the whole reason I chose Reflect was because of that point, which is that you can actually put photographs of things you want to remember, and Reflect can actually bring those things back, to your memories. Like it can take images as well, which is great because it's connected to Evernote. So anything you can put in Evernote is basically something that it can send back to you to look at. So just know that you do have that function of being able to put photographs. So you can do flashcards, you can do all kinds of things in that. So thanks for reminding me because it had slipped my mind. Filmbox looks interesting. It kind of it's a little bit different from Google's photo scan application, which allows you to take basically scans of physical photos. This is helping you take scans of film negatives and turn them into digital. So that's all good stuff there. Wonderful. All right. New tools are out of the way, which brings us along to our featured story this week. And our featured story this week is all about Elon Musk at Mobile World Congress gave a talk, if you want to call it that. It was really a Q&A. He sat down for a fireside chat virtually with the folks at Mobile World Congress, and he was talking about Starlink. And for those of you who are unaware, Starlink is an internet service provider that is satellite based. So these are satellites that are in near Earth orbit, and they allow for places that are in fairly rural areas, but even some populated spaces gain access to high speed, consistent, strong throughput broadband internet access. So what did you think about Elon Musk's conversation?
The conversation was interesting. The fact that he thinks he will be $500,000 in the next year, 500,000 users in the next year, that's really interesting. And I think they're doing well because at least the beta test, I was not in an area where you can get into that beta test, but it was $99. It was $20 more than what I paid for fiber, cable, whatever is what I have. So if for $99 you can improve the consistency of my service, and it's $20 more to get it out of that, it's not, I remember many years ago, the first satellite I heard about internet coming via satellite, the difference was significant. It was really expensive. So it was not an option. Now, if you can get this for $100, $20 more than what you're getting, hey, it will be completely worth it. Now you can have that same service in the vehicles. You can have that same service regardless where you go. You can be in a hotel and be connected to your service. I'm sure there is devices that you may need to carry with you, but having all those things will be interesting. So I don't know. I'm really, really excited. I was impressed that they have launched more than 1,700 satellites in the low orbit since 2018. That's a significant amount of them, and I wasn't aware that there were that many.
Yeah. Well, so like you probably can't be. You could be mobile with your Starlink service. It would require you to have that dish mounted on the vehicle. But not to say that I didn't think about it. Because it's $100 for the service to put a deposit down to get into the system. I'm actually in an area that is actually covered by Starlink, so I have considered it. It's $500 for the router, and then $100 a month, $99 for the service per month. It's the same price globally, and it's just translated for currency, and then of course whatever the duties and taxes that are associated with that. That's a pretty remarkable feet. Like if you want to go off the grid, move out to someplace rural that doesn't have internet, strong broadband, now you can. It's just, you sign up for the service. I like the part where he said, we wanted to make this easy. So you have 2 steps. You set up, the dish so that it's angled toward the sky, and you plug it in. Those are the 2 steps. You can do them in either order. you can plug it in and then put it direct it at the sky, or you can direct it at the sky and plug it in. That kind of ease of use, I think, is really, really important and powerful. You don't need an installer. You don't need any sophisticated equipment other than the device they send you in the Starlink kit. And this is a service that's going to be able to fill in the gap between residential and commercial hardline internet service providers and 5G technology, cellular. And so he was very clear about that. Of course, he's at Mobile World Congress, and he wants to make sure that he is partnering with telcos for the proliferation of this service. And he really focused on the fact that a lot of this is going to be for backhaul and for other regulatory concerns of telecommunications companies and telecommunications providers who can't go into particular areas because they can't service the entire area. And so this will give them that option to be able to say, we're going to partner with Starlink, and we're going to light up everybody, but only the portions that are out there in the, outside of the urban areas or the areas we cannot get that are remote, those will be Starlink, but everybody else is going to be on our infrastructure and is going to be within our space. And now they can get the contract for that government or jurisdiction or otherwise.
Well, but for example, last fall, we took a trip. We rent an Airbnb, and again, that's for me is a vacation. Okay, I work anyways, but the kids had their vacation. That for me was a vacation. Coming to what we were discussing earlier. Okay, we went 5 days. A small dish, the pictures I saw are not that big. So small dish like that can come with me part of my suitcase. I will even be open to buy the fancy case so it doesn't get a squish in the back. Okay, I get there, put my thing in the backyard, plug it in, and now I don't need to consider, okay, is my LTE going to be fine, or my 5G going to be fine, or the Wi-Fi they're going to be good enough. I don't need to worry about that. That part worth for me the $100.
Yeah, and I also see now the opportunity for campgrounds and other places to gain access to high-speed broadband and provide that to customers who want it. I mean, maybe you want to go out in the wilderness and be disconnected from the world. I don't. And so I want all of the amenities of living, wherever I am. And so, but I see this on cruise ships. Currently cruise ships have pretty poor internet access, but now if they can provide stronger, better access in and from Starlink, that could be phenomenal. That would be really great. And yeah, so a couple other notes that I kind of picked up from Elon, which is that what Musk is doing here is that he is attempting to put together all of these things that he thinks are good for humanity, and in terms of his kind of portfolio of businesses. And he's making these things somewhat strategically, but also not. Like he's looking at it from the perspective of, will this help humanity? And then choosing these companies that do these things. Like he doesn't need to do Starlink. Like it's not part of some grand plan that he needs that in order to be able to do what his real goal is, right? He wants to put people on Mars, and he thinks that populating humans on other planets is a mechanism for not just greater human discovery and greater human development, but also as a mechanism for human survival, right? That at some point we will need to leave planet Earth if we do plan to live longer, for propagation and survival of the species, kind of thing. If you believe that, and he does, and so he wants to get people to Mars, but he doesn't necessarily need Starlink to get us there. He needs those rockets and the reusability of those rockets to bring them into a cheaper format, and he's doing that with the SpaceX program. So I'm really curious what Starlink is really all about, other than the fact that he wants to be able to have internet access wherever he is. Like I don't really know. I think there's probably a monetary opportunity there, but as he said, he's going to be putting in, what do you say, $5 billion, so far to get to get to at least a launch space, then we're talking another 10 to 20 billion dollars to really keep it going before it really does get to that saturation point and is profitable. Kind of those are the numbers he was running around. I just, like, you could spend $20 billion better for yourself. So I'm curious. There has to be a reason underlying why he did it, and he kind of avoided the question when it was asked. And I'm really curious where Starlink plays into his overarching kind of, perspective in all of this. And yeah, so we'll see. I mean, it's just like with Tesla, he believes that electric vehicles are better for the planet. And so he's been pushing toward getting battery technologies and EVs, pushed forward. And he's done a really, I think, strong job of doing that by putting out a luxury vehicle that people want, and has really pushed forward the EV movement. So, I thought it was a really interesting talk. I thought he was Elon, like he clearly is. He's not a charismatic individual, but he's very smart. He's very, very bright, and he knows what he wants, and he is well researched in going toward the things that he wants, and so he's dogged toward that. He just turned 50, I think, the day before Mobile World Congress when he attended. So he's just 50 years old. So he's got many years ahead of him in terms of what he can do for humanity. So interesting character, I suppose. Just like any other multi-billionaire, you're going to have some eccentricities. So. All right. Anything else, Augusto?
Nope. That brings us to the end of our show for this week.
Well, wonderful. Well, thank you, Augusto, for putting together the show and making this all happen every week.
It's my pleasure, as always.
All right, everybody, let us know. We have a section in the show notes. So if you go to anythingbutidle.com/068 tomorrow morning, for those of you who are watching us live, but normally if you go to anythingbutidle.com/068, which is the episode number, so any of the episode numbers, you will be taken to the show notes where we have the embedded video and the embedded audio, and you can listen to all that fun stuff. There in that section, we have other news, our extra stories. And so feel free to check those out because they're there. We just don't cover them during the show live. But if we did miss something, feel free to go to our contact page or go to the comment section on that page and leave us a comment and let us know about any stories that might have cropped up that you want to talk about. You can also tweet or DM us on Twitter at anythingbutidle. So we have our DMs open on that Twitter profile, so you can go ahead and message us there. If you're on Anything But Idle, in the show notes, you'll find links to all the stories, tools of the week, our extra stories, as I said, that we didn't cover. And we also have a text transcript. So that includes a button that says read more. Click on the read more, expands it. You can read it while you're listening or watching along. And then, of course, we have a download link below that. You can click on the PDF download link, and it'll download it as a PDF for you to be able to read offline as well. If this is your first time watching or listening, feel free to subscribe and or follow the podcast or the YouTube channel. That'll notify you when we go live for future episodes, or you'll just get the podcast episodes in the podcast app of your choice that will come out when we release new episodes. And so thank you for doing that. Feel free to rate or review us in Apple Podcasts or Stitcher. And I'm hoping at some point in the future, Google decides to add a review function into Google Podcasts. But until then, it's Apple Podcasts or Stitcher pretty much that allow for ratings and reviews. And those are really helpful for us to grow our personal productivity, listening community, and watching community. So thank you for doing that. And so with that, we'll see you next time on Anything But Idle. Here's your productive life.